This podcast talks candidly and openly about issues of male sexual violence. A full list of topics can be found in the episode description. Unfortunately, during this recording, we experienced a sound issue that we weren't aware of until after the recording was completed. Despite that, I think you'll agree that the content of the conversation makes it well worth sticking with us throughout.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Silence, the official podcast of We're Survivors. My name is George, I'll be your host. Very glad you could join us. This is a podcast about creating a safe space for male survivors of sexual violence, but it's also a chance for them to learn more about our service, be introduced to what we offer here, and for us to discuss the crucial and important issues that our community faces. So today we've got a very special episode. We'll be joined by Jamie, who is an integral part of our team, has been for a very long time here at We're Survivors. He'll be talking about the operations service and introducing that. After the interview, we'll be focusing on some recent news, looking at the issues that affect survivors and the industry that surrounds us. Then we'll move on to the activity spotlight, where we're going to shine a light on one of our amazing initiatives that we run here. Finally, we've got the letter segment. That's where you get to write in, have your voice heard, ask any questions, and we'll answer them, of course. So, without further ado, let's get started. Grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable. We'll begin. So, Jamie, welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. You've been a real integral part of helping develop We Are Survivors, and particularly within your role within the operations side of, everything we do here. It's kind of, to me, certainly whenever something goes wrong, it's the glue that holds everything together, but it's also that sort of invisible hand that keeps people protected, keeps people, feeling safe, able to engage in the service, get the most out of it. It really does sort of run the ship in many different ways. So can you give us a little bit of an insight into what your role is within operations and how it, affects and benefits the guys who use our service?
Yeah. So thanks for having me on the podcast. Like you say, I've been here for quite a while now.
7 years, right?
Yeah, and I've gone through many different roles within that as the organisation's grown. I've been able to grow with that. And the operational aspect of the organisation has just grown from strength to strength. It's been very much needed, especially with things such as data reporting, making sure that the cogs turn. So, clients want to come in and use the toilet. We need to make sure that there's toilet roll in there. We also need to keep the lights on, and we also need to report to funders.
There's so much that fills in the background that you don't even notice about. Anytime you walk into a space, the fact that it's got a working fire alarm, the fact that it's got a fire exit plan, the fact that the lights are still on, like all of that fills into a role that most people don't appreciate. But boy, do they notice when it's not working.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a wide range of things. We deliver community activities to, individuals that want to use them.
Yeah.
Each of the activities requires specific insurance, right up from, even doing yoga.
Yeah.
Because it's a form of physical activity.
Oh, yeah.
We need to ensure that clients are ready to perform that physical activity. So we need to make sure that we're insured, we're getting the correct paperwork done, because, it's something that has to be done.
Yeah.
And we do that within the operations team. We make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. There's a wide range, like I said, make sure that the things are clean. You want to come into a safe, clean environment. You want it to feel comforting.
Yeah.
You want someone to come in and feel that. You want to feel that they've just walked into the living room.
Yeah, it feels like safety. Safety is a lot of people think about safety as in, if I had an accident, there's some first aid. Of course, that's something that falls under your role as well, ensuring all that.
Yeah.
But so much of safety is being within a space, being able to look around it and say, I know I'm in a good environment because it's clean. It smells nice. There's not stains on the walls. Little details like that. You when you walk into a place, you learn with your eyes and your nose. All of that matters a lot. Yeah. No, I think creating that kind of welcoming environment is really, really important. And that stems all the way back, not just thinking about our physical spaces, but knowing that when someone is going to share with us for the first time, their data is being handled in the correct way. All of that is so, so important and often so underappreciated.
Yeah. So there's a lot of information that comes through to us, a lot of special characteristics, a lot of personal information, right down to, the trauma that someone
Yeah.
has been through that comes in, we have to have that information to ensure that we can best support that individual. We
Yeah.
can best provide a service that can support the needs that that individual needs. Not every survivor needs therapy. They might just want to connect with other peers, and that might be something that we get at assessment. We have that data, and we can then triage that client to ensure that we give them the best support.
Yeah.
That's necessary.
Yeah, no, all of that feeds very much into my role in the community, for example, when we're first opening the door to someone and trying to get them the support they need, hold their hand until therapy, find them an alternate pathway. That relies so much on what we already know, what they've shared with us. The last thing you want is to have another phone call where you're having to dig up, rehash all these things you've already told someone. You want someone to be able to look and listen and say immediately, even before they go into that first phone call, have an idea about a pathway that's just generally going to suit that person, support what they've, presented with already, not having to constantly drum up and listen and listen and listen to the same story a dozen times. In terms of your own role, I'm very much prodding you about the operations side and about data, but I want to just bring it back to a more personal point briefly. What's a question that you wish others would ask you more, and how would you answer it?
I think it's the question of, I often get asked, like, is it a difficult environment to work within?
Yeah.
And it's always a question where, like, I think people have assumptions that it's always a difficult area to work within, but it's not. That's not generally the case.
Well, because of the traumatic nature? Or,
disclosure. Yeah, so people think that people disclosing, what has happened to them, is difficult, but that's not the case. It's people coming forward. It's great to be in an environment to run the operations of an organisation, to get people to come through the door for the very first time. It's having that phone line available for if someone picks up the phone but they put it down again straight away.
Yeah.
At least they made that effort, and it's all about them cogs turning so that we make it readily available, that our services are ready for that point that someone wants to come in.
Yeah.
And that's coming through the door that's the best thing.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult, in the operations team, the referral is the first point of contact, and we read that story and we see how much an individual puts on that referral form. And it is really difficult, but the fact that someone's come forward, they've wanted to come into our service to gain that support, that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I do my job, and I may not be client facing, but I do everything to ensure that people can come into a nice, safe space, and that fills me with so much joy. Seeing people come in, seeing, unfortunately more and more people coming forward, but at least then people have a place to go to.
Yeah.
And like we discussed at the beginning of the podcast, it's, I strive on ensuring that we can provide the best space to provide the best support available, and then that can also lead into having high quality data sets.
Yeah. No, and I think it's really interesting when you look at that data and you look at how much time is spent before someone is able to disclose. This is 20 years of someone's life. The importance of having that first phone call be trusted, be listened to, having that phone line be running, be available, having that referral come in swiftly, have that information be correctly recorded and used. If you've built up such a mask, or you've managed to push down trauma for so long, covered it in order to survive through necessity, the last thing you want is to have that bad first impression, be it because you walk in and why is that wall covered in mustard, or you don't feel like you're being listened to, which is such a barrier for many people, particularly with doctors and such. When you go in and you know that you're heard, and you don't have something that just gives you that little excuse to step back and have that door close again, because there's real evidence to show that if someone's first disclosure goes wrong, it can really, really push them back into a further sort of spiral. So making sure that first step in is as good as it can be just feels really, really important. You talk about the burden of hearing those stories for the first time, but also the privilege of knowing that someone who hadn't been listened to is sharing so much pain, and we're able to draw a line under it and say, it doesn't go any further. This is the crossroads. This is your path forward now with the organization. Having heard those stories and seeing that growing need, knowing that we're reaching more and more people, and knowing there's more survivors out there, and of course that's painful, but that they have a home. As our organization has grown over those 7 years that you've been here, what are some of the most startling changes or widespread impressive things you've noticed about how our work here has changed, either through how we've expanded or how we've been able to reach people, use tools in a different way to properly sort of record information?
There's been a wide variety of changes that we've seen. We've gone from having a small building in what could be best described as 40 towers. And, we delivered a drop-in a space that was no bigger than, I'm not sure.
It was knee to knee, wasn't it?
It was knee to knee. And now we've got 2 buildings, one that we can deliver therapy in confidential therapy rooms, and another building where we can deliver huge groups.
You mentioned the yoga. We've got plenty of room to throw our arms around.
Exactly. Yeah. We can have up to, we can have lots and lots of people. They're comfortably in the space.
Yeah.
They're comfortably in a safe space.
Yeah.
And we're able to do a lot more activities. So you'll see that our community development teams' calendars, the sessions that they deliver, is growing and growing, and the spaces that we're being able to provide has come from that growth and that need.
It really feels as if the charity's sort of entering a new chapter. It was a really interesting and exciting time when I joined the organization 6 months ago. It felt like there was this new wave of momentum, lots of changes, even the names changed. Our branding has come out to such a clean and crisp level where it's much more recognizable. I'm seeing it everywhere. But then also the physical changes about who we're able to reach and who we're able to interact with. I'm thinking for one about the 90 Girls Week, for example.
Yeah, so that's our next phase. We're hoping that we can get it up and running as quickly as possible, but we are going to be facilitating ABEs here at our centre. So that's achieving best evidence. That's when someone is reported, and that's when they first do their police interview. But we're going to be having a room within our building, so that it's going back to that safe space. It's someone coming to a safe space rather than a police station. And what that means is they can come, do their ABE, and then they can also get the aftercare support. Whether that's with a therapist, whether it's with a member of the CDT, so our community development team, whoever that means, that they can sit with that individual after they've discussed something that can be really difficult, and re-encountering events that they've had to squash. It's very difficult, but we rather have people come here and do it rather than go to a police station. Nobody wants to go to a police station.
Trust and faith in the police at the moment is incredibly low, in terms of their facilities, how they might be treated there. Of course, we don't want to create a new barrier of anxiety towards someone's ability to engage. This is an accessible space. You can enter here with a wheelchair. You're not going up a flight of stairs. There are doors that will open for you. There's a disabled access toilet. Not every police station is going to offer you that. Not every police station is going to think to offer that. But if you've built a rapport with someone in, for example, the ISFA, the Independent Sexual Violence Advisor team, or in community or with the therapy team, someone could be there to quite literally hold your hand. You're in a space that you already recognize, one that you travel to, hopefully frequently for community events or therapy anyway, and you have that extra sort of circle of support around you. Whereas going to a police station for the first time, your mind could be whirring, and you don't have that decompression time afterwards where you can sort of step into a space, talk through how it's gone, see that everything went to plan. And I think that's really important.
Most definitely. And I think there's just going back to, what I get from working here is, I wouldn't want to go to a police station. But what it means for me being in an operational aspect is I know that room can be set up as a nice, clean space. I know we keep going back to this, but I think
It
it's
matters.
essential.
It really matters.
But what me and my team can provide is that space that we know is what a client deserves. They deserve that nice, safe space.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do with the Nightingale suite that we're going to have here at our centre. We're going to be able to provide people the opportunity to come here, do their ABE, and at least I know, and the satisfaction that I get is they're going to go into a room which is comforting, and they're going to get the aftercare, and that's part of my role. It's about making sure that then cogs turn. Part of that cog is making sure that a room's suitable, that it's a safe space.
Yeah.
And that's essential.
Yeah, and it's all been created because of the through line of operations through what we do, how data is handled, how spaces are run, how safety is guaranteed. All of that has been put into every single space from a single department at an organization that prides itself on understanding trauma care better than most. You know, for male survivors, we are the leading force. We are really writing the book on it at the moment. And unlike, for example, if I'm coming to a police station, how that space is used, how it's designed, and what I can expect to happen in it. There wasn't an architect standing there in the background with a male trauma specialist hat on saying, put that over there, or absolutely don't hang that picture on the wall, you know? Having that single line of philosophy go through everything, I think, is what makes this space inviting, and it shows. It works for that reason.
Yeah, and I think just going back to over the years, the growth and things is, you know, I've been here when I first started. It was the football abuse story had come out, and then you know, we saw a massive jump in referrals then. And then if we go, I think it was roughly a year and a half on from that, we had Coronation Street.
Yeah.
And
so storylines in various
storylines, and from my perspective, you know, the amount of people coming forward after both of those events, they grew and grew, which is great for male survivors and coming forward and people wanting to tell their story.
Yeah.
Like that story has told their story. And we've worked with, you know, writing the scripts and supporting the drafting of those scripts. So Duncan supported that, and we've supported it as an organisation. But we're talking about growth, and there's still a long way to go. But you know, even with Coronation Street, now with Baby Reindeer, you know, the numbers have really shot up. And that puts an extra emphasis on myself and my team, because there's more people coming forward, more people that are needing our support, which means that we have to adapt, change our systems, which we have done, you know, especially with new modern technology as well.
Which we'll get into a little bit later, actually.
So we've had to adapt and change and make sure that systems work for us. And it's a long, good old slog. But like I say, it always comes down to ensuring that our staff can work easier so that they can work easier on our systems to work harder, of ensuring the clients get the best support that they can possibly provide and get from our client-facing team.
I don't think we'd be able to look in the mirror if we delivered anything less.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And I think everybody should. People should come in and expect that.
Yeah. Jamie, thank you so much for your time. I really hope you stick around with me for a little bit longer, not only to listen to our question that came in today, but also to discuss some of the news with me right now.
Yeah, thank you.
Now it's time for the news. So here's where we talk about, well, quite a variety of things. Everything that's relevant to our great sphere. So that could be survivorship stories that are making their way through the media. It could be new legislation changes that have impact on survivors. In this particular situation, there's actually some findings about the charity sector which reveal some quite harsh truths about it and how We Are Survivors is kind of racing to meet the demands of the new digital age. So specifically, it's the Ben Davis article for e-consultancy, which is titled Digital Progress Static as Nearly Half of Charities Say Staff Skills Are a Barrier. The 2024 Charity Digital Skills Report has revealed staff and volunteer skills as a major constraint to managing data and successfully fundraising digitally, with more than 2 in 5 charities saying they primarily need funding to access training. It's quite a heavy report. 635 organizations. Across all respondents, 43% of charities mentioned that they needed funding most often to access training for staff and volunteers, an increase on 36% from last year. Focuses particularly on issues with digital data collection. The numbers that really jumped out for me were about, across large and small charities, a real lack of confidence in data skills and capabilities. So 31% of respondents said they lacked confidence with managing data, said they were poor at or not engaging with the collection and management and use of data. And 34% mentioned this in specifically regards to data-informed decision-making, which is something that's very important to us because survivorship and how it moves through the media, we really have to keep an eye on how people are disclosing what new demographics are moving in. So, for example, after Dele Alli spoke up and gave an interview with Gary Neville, that changed the kind of people that we were expecting to come into the organization and reached a whole new frontier. So keeping up and staying on top of that and meeting that demand is something that's really important to us. It's difficult to see that charities are struggling. Can you talk a little bit about how We Are Survivors has been able to keep up with changes and make sure that we're on top of that digital age?
Yeah, so we've done a wide range of different elements, but I think one of the most important aspects that we need to touch on is the knowledge of training that's out there.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to cost. So there's a lot of apprenticeships out there at the moment that are being funded by private sector businesses.
Yeah.
So I think it was around 16 months ago now. I got a call off an individual acknowledging that there was funded apprenticeships available that were fully funded.
Yeah.
So I took that to my team and one of my colleagues, he has, well, in the next few weeks, he'll be finishing his 15-month apprenticeship.
Touch wood.
So he's just coming up to his final assessments now, which is great. But what he's been able to develop there is a real eye for data.
Yeah.
It's utilising programs such as Power BI, which are new ways of presenting our data.
Yeah.
But we have always tried to be on the front foot when it comes to managing our data.
Yeah.
Which shows with elements of the apprenticeships like we've just discussed.
Yeah.
You acknowledged that in the article that it was 51% don't utilise it, was it?
Yeah, no, there was a particular other number as well, 51% not properly utilising data management.
So we've always utilised it. We've utilised it to support service deliveries, to support wire services needed.
Yeah.
It also supports some of our key aims as a charity. So, you know, we want to reduce that length of time that an individual takes to disclose, and we want to do that by delivering services such as our Hangout.
Yeah. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we specifically focus on the activity spotlight. But I think it's a great chance to sort of introduce the concept of it. That was a space that was aimed specifically at meeting an unmet group in the data, 18 to 35. And it's been really, really interesting seeing how we can look at the sort of the gap of, you know, who doesn't engage, who can't engage amongst that demographic. What do they enjoy? What kind of activities they enjoy? And that's completely driven that entire sort of field. You know, we've gone in that direction because of that. But I think as well, there's a lot to be said about the reasons for collecting data as well. I think it can be quite intimidating for someone who's coming into an organization, knowing that, of course, we need some information, such as their name and, you know, ways to contact them. But is there any way to sort of reassure and explain how we use our data in our role, both as, you know, a safeguarding organization? We've talked a little bit about it as a means of driving our particular changes and our activities. But if I give my data here, you know, how do I know that it's being used safely? How do I get that confidence?
So we always follow GDPR, ICO guidelines. The ICO an organisation, they are the Information Commissioner's Office.
Yeah.
They come up with the guidelines that we have to follow.
Mm-hmm.
All of our data, because it is so sensitive, we always keep it confidential. We go as far as anonymizing individuals, so individuals get unique reference numbers, and then that allows us to track a case completely anonymously.
Yeah, even through internal emails, we're never using someone's name.
Yeah, exactly. We'd never use it, and it's so unique that there's no form of identifiable information in there.
Yeah.
But like I say, we have to follow guidelines. We have to ensure that we're using secure servers, that we are ensuring that right down to cybersecurity. So at the minute, we're going through Cyber Essentials certification. So we are being assessed to ensure that all of our systems are secure, that the people using them know why and how to use them in a secure manner, and to ensure that we have that kite mark to say that we will keep your data secure.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole host of different elements that are in place. We go back to all them things that happen in the background that people don't know about. We ensure that we keep emails as secure as we can. Sometimes, that can be very difficult.
Yeah.
Because you want to ensure that every email comes through, but you also want to ensure that emails are going from
Necessary
to the right
protection.
destination.
Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly, because not everybody wants to pick up the phone. Some people do want to email.
Yeah.
But we want to reassure people that if you do email, that information is coming to us securely.
Yeah.
It's coming to us securely on secure servers. It's continued development that we have got to continually develop. We've got to continually develop with modern technology.
Yeah.
But all data is anonymous. People can come to us and specific clients can request their data if they want to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, data freedom of information request. You're perfectly entitled to look at how we use your data. And that's why we take such care over it.
Yeah.
We're not just collecting all your emails or fun facts about the 3 dogs you've got. Yeah. Everything we've written down there is for a purpose. And if you would like to see it, you're absolutely entitled to.
Yeah, and an individual can put in their freedom of information request. And I try to ensure that I go above and beyond that and discuss that with the client. This is what you're asking for. Do you know what you're asking? Because they're getting all the information on them.
Yeah.
It can be very difficult.
Yeah, no,
for information, our client-facing staff will, especially our therapists will put therapeutic notes on there, discussing the specific elements of the therapy session,
Yeah.
So it's about understanding that, but going right back to basic and ensuring that the data that we store is completely anonymized, it's on secure servers, and we do our best to ensure that that information is kept confidential where it needs to be, and I'm working on developments.
Yeah, it all surrounds and underpins what we do. Data drives the reasoning, it drives the momentum behind things, but it reflects our ongoing commitment towards that confidentiality. If we worry about the barriers, we talked about trying to bring down that time it takes to disclose, help people get into a space where they can live their lives free of shame and self-doubt far, far sooner. All that comes from knowing that your information can be handled securely. When you take your step out of that door, you're not stepping out into an unknown, you're stepping out into a space that prides itself and has sort of written the book on how to treat men, how to support them, and follows and prides itself on staying within necessary compliance. And we mentioned freedom of data and information requests. If you don't believe us and you have any concerns at all about how your information is being shared, absolutely approach us. And you've explained your dedication to talking to clients about that should they find that necessary, and making sure they understand what they're asking for, how long it might take, and so on and so forth. Yeah. I think it's really, really crucial that if our clients are the data themselves, if they're the numbers behind everything, that we've got the tools and we've got the skill set to listen to it and appreciate their concerns, see them as more than just an individual, but see them as a group, a wider voice, and then find the spaces that can facilitate the specific support that they need. Kind of following those trends, that is what's going to keep us really on that cutting edge, in my opinion.
Yeah, most definitely. And And if an individual goes to our website, I think it's under About Us, but there's a tab on there.
Yes, yeah.
About data compliance. So within that, that's our Your Information leaflet. So that tells an individual what we do with their information, how they can request it, what we do with it, why we do what we do with the data that we gather, and that's there to help put employees that it is highly sensitive, but we will do our utmost to ensure that is sensitive. We follow ICO guidelines. We make sure that we keep up with modern technology, cybersecurity, and we're doing that via keeping up to date with things, but going through Cyber Essentials certification as well.
Okay, up next is our activity spotlight. As I said earlier, this is where we talk about the initiatives that we're running at the moment, particularly our community events, but also spaces outside it, the places that we run to meet your needs as a survivor. Now, today I wanted to talk about the Hangout. It's a project that's very, very close to my heart because I lead the charge on it. I push the boat out, and I'm outspoken, will never shut up about the Hangout. But it's relevant to talk about today because it was driven by data. I talked about earlier about that unmet sort of need. We looked at clients aged 18 to 35. We're trying to push down the time it takes for someone to disclose. It seemed important to us to create a space where someone can feel unjudged and talk about their issues anonymously. And I'll get into that in just a moment. But at that sort of younger age, fitting that demographic. And I think that's what that space really is intended to create. So part of what makes the Hangout so special for me, certainly, is that when it was initially being conceived of, one of the members of the team who was a real driving force behind it was that person Jamie mentioned earlier, who had taken an apprenticeship in data management. So we looked at who we weren't reaching. We talked about that 18 to 35 range, that crucial range. We're trying to bring down that time it takes to disclose. We also looked at the activities they did engage with and spoke to them about what they would look for in a space. And in fact, we kind of passed the reins to them. How the Hangout exists right now is a very, very casual environment. It's not trauma forward, unlike our safe rooms. We talk about that in episode 2 of this podcast if you're very curious to learn about more, a little bit more information about them. But in terms of the Hangout, very, very casual space. Often we play video games, we play card games. I always win. So that's fine. It's an invitation. Anyone who's good at cards or good at Mario Kart, come and dethrone me because my ego can't take it much longer. But more importantly, very, very relaxed environment. You can talk or not talk at all. And it's actually one of our few spaces where if you choose to turn up, you can bring an ally with you. So you can bring a supporter with you into that space to fit that age range, 18 to 35. That's fantastic. Doesn't have to be a man. If they're there to support you, that's absolutely fine. Crucially as well, you could turn up as an ally, not deciding to out yourself as a survivor if you're not quite at that point yet, and just say, I'm here to support survivors. I've got a survivor in my life. I'm just here to support. And then months down the line, you might change your mind and decide to talk more about your survivorship or move into other spaces, sign up for therapy. So it's a really, really gentle way into the service, which when we're looking at that crucial demographic that isn't ready to talk, it's very much respecting of that. It's very patient with them. Something we'll be looking at down the line as well is once we've got it really, really up and running, it's a very, very new project, passing the torch back and saying, okay, well, we'd like to get involved in other spaces. We've had a lot of interest from other charities and other organizations about running events with us related to the Hangout. We'll pass the torch to you. We'll write down a list. You can vote and we'll see what events you want to put on. We'll put them in the calendar. So it will be very much driven by young individuals themselves. And I think that's really, really special. It's quite a unique test. It's a new thing. We're kind of dipping our toe in. But I think it's going to be worth the risk. And I think the rewards will really, really pay off if we're able to help bring down that time it takes people to speak and look at a really vulnerable age group for men and non-binary individuals and find ways to help them get connected. I think it's really, really special.
Yeah, I think it's really important there. And someone please come and knock George off the Mario Kart pyramid.
It's about time.
But yeah, I think it's really good there because it's a really something that I pride myself in, the Hangout, because like I say, it's been led by my colleague,
absolutely,
who took all of our data and looked at where the gaps were, and he's done a lot of his work has been on going right down into the data, looking at what age range we need to sort of look to put activities on for, and that's where we got the 18 to 35, and that's where through the data, through communications between the individual and yourself, George, you know,
Yeah.
he was able to develop the hangout, and like I say, it's a very new activity, but something that can be, you know, it's a chill zone.
There's potential there. It's something really, really casual that if, you know, we get that influx in, if we're able to really, really open that door, it's very natural to see how it could grow. And I think that's very exciting.
And I think it's important that, you know, you don't have to come alone, you know, bring an ally, you know. I would 100% feel more comfortable coming with a friend.
Definitely.
So,
yeah,
you know, I find it more difficult to come on my own. So that's just me personally.
yeah,
But if you've got an ally, or bring your friend,
yeah.
you know, whoever it is.
And it's a good chance to make one if you don't.
Exactly. You know, create your own leadership on Mario Kart, create your own card games. You know, it's
exactly.
You know, even if you just want to come and have a brew, Mario Kart and cards aren't your thing. Come in and
just be here, just touch base.
Just be with us.
Yeah.
Be with people.
Yeah. Remember, of course, if you want to learn any more information about our community activities and the support that we offer here at We Are Survivors, our website is a fantastic port of call. But otherwise, please consider calling in. You can always ask to speak to a member of the community team, such as myself, and we'll walk you right through. Up next, lastly, and very much not leastly, is the Let's segment. So as I said earlier, this is a chance for you to write in, have any questions heard, share your stories, whatever it might want to be. We're here to listen to you. Now, the best way to get on the podcast and have your voice heard is via the hashtag #BreakTheSilence on Instagram or Twitter. You can also find us specifically under the handles @ThisIsSurvivors. Reach out to us there, call in, or send an email via community@wearesurvivors.org.uk. We'll listen to you and hopefully you'll get on the show. Today, we've just got a really, really simple one to talk through, but that opens up some interesting doors when it talks about where the service is now and where we'd like to be, where we're going towards. Came in from an anonymous caller 2 weeks ago, and very simply, does this service support survivors of sexual violence who are themselves perpetrators of sexual offences? Now, the short answer is unfortunately no. As a service, of course, we need to create a safe space for survivors, and even if you don't consider yourself a danger to others, it's really, really important that survivors walk into a space and know that there are no perpetrators around them. That is just a survivor-led space. I mean, we do, of course, work with other organizations that support survivors who are themselves perpetrators. And we would always point them towards places like Lucy Faithful, Stop SO, because, you know, they are still a survivor. We don't want to leave any survivor behind just because of the functions of working as a physical space that needs to be safe for everyone in it. It just doesn't work that way. But there are other ways in which we support survivors who are perpetrators, be that through our work within prisons, through the Outspoken team, where we provide mental health support for a wide range of individuals who are currently incarcerated. But we are also looking at new projects and sort of new frontiers about how we can work with perpetrators. We actually have some exciting projects in the pipeline about that, which I think it's a real challenge for the organization. It's something that I think quite a few people were surprised that we want to do. But when we talk about data, when we talk about being driven by the clients themselves, it's worth mentioning at this point the ERG, our expert reference group. When we talk to them about the possibility of working with survivors who were perpetrators, we expected a pushback. They were actually all for it. They saw and understood that working with survivors who were perpetrators was a great chance to, and this is a myth, it's not exactly a functional thing, but kind of break a cycle of abuse. You know, we're very thankful that very few survivors do go on to become perpetrators, far fewer than most people realize. But it was a chance to make an intervention in someone's life, look at what support they could have inside prison or outside of prison, and try and cut down any chances of creating new survivors out there. As much as we love engaging with survivors, we don't want more of you. We want to find the ones who are out there. We want to put an end to this culture that's around. And so it is a really exciting challenge, and it's something that those who follow our organization and those who are dedicated towards helping break the silence, helping increase information about this particular issue, male survivorship. It's very on the cutting edge at the moment, very much on everyone's lips. I think it's important to stay tuned and sort of see what we can do as part of our responsibility to help stop, the creation of new survivors, help look at perpetrators and give them the support they need just to choose other ways forward. I think that's really, really exciting. It certainly will be a challenge, but like all the other challenges we face so far, it's one that I'm looking forward to, definitely.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Is the best thing that can come is that I'm made redundant because there's no male survivors left.
Happily, that would be fantastic. If one day, and this is something that Duncan Craig always says, if one day that phone doesn't ring, there's no more male survivors out there, they're done, we helped all of them, I will walk, I'll put a little sack on a stick over my shoulder and I will walk off into the sunset, never to be seen again. That's fantastic. We'd all like the job to be done, but we're not there yet. We may never be there, realistically. So finding new ways that we can reach people, finding new ways that we can make intervention, create that cultural change, be it through, like what you mentioned earlier, supporting projects like Coronation Street, promoting Baby Reindeer, that's going to be really, really exciting. We've seen the impact that media change has had on our service. 40% in the last few months of our referrals specifically refer to Baby Reindeer as a major reason for why they broke their silence, why they actually stepped into our support. So looking at information like that, in the same way as we already look at that information for our current standard clients, to examine a perpetrator survivor, to examine what interventions we've made, how that can cut down likelihood of reoffending, how that can increase engagement with therapy, all data that we can look at and track, that can really shape the future of how we look at post-prison support for perpetrators. That could have wider reaching impact on the justice sector and about how we can actually make these proper interventions, not just through education in schools, but looking at perpetrators who are out there and seeing what changes can we make now. You always want to be that person who makes the intervention, that final intervention that means that no others follow afterwards. And I think that would be a really, really interesting challenge to be a part of. Well, tragically, that is all we have time for today on Beyond the Silence. Jamie, thank you so much for being my guest today. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear from you.
Thank you, John.
No, it's been a really interesting insight into a part of the organisation that I very much appreciate when I break something and you save the day. But I think it's been a really useful insight for someone who was looking at engaging with the organisation. It's such a reassurance to see about the level of care that goes into everything we do. Do you have a final thought you'd like to leave us with today? A last message to any survivors and supporters of survivors out there who might be listening?
Yeah, most definitely. To acknowledge that wherever you are, whoever you are, we're here for you.
Yeah.
No matter what support, no matter when you need it, just remember we're here. If you pick up the phone and put it down again, that's fine as well. At least you made that first step. But like I say, whatever you need, the support services are here. Just come.
Yeah.
Reach for that phone, write down the telephone number, write down the email address. Even if you don't use it straight away, it's there for when you need to use it. But yeah, we're here. We've got a safe space ready for you. George is ready with Mario Kart whenever anybody's in.
If you fancy it.
If anybody fancies
tough enough.
Yeah, if you think it's tough enough. If you want to knock him off his pedestal, but we're here for whatever support you need.
Yeah, brilliant. To reiterate what my lovely guest has already just said, remember, if you or someone in your life needs support, the best place to visit is our website. Read about us, find some information. Do not hesitate to call, either on your own behalf or someone else's. Always feel free to reach out. The information you need will be on the screen right now, including our email address and that phone number. As well as the on-screen information, all of our information is always available in the episode description itself. We're here for you whenever you're ready. This has been Beyond the Silence. I've been your host, George. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you for the next episode. From our safe space to yours. Goodbye.